The title of my exhibit is Demonstrating Victory. It focuses on the Lawrence County Home Demonstration Club between 1940 and 1945. The Home Demonstration Club was founded to help Arkansas women during the Great Depression, also before, improve their living conditions without the use of money. The club would send out agents to each woman's home that was a part of the club and help them do chores, help them improve their home. They would also help teach them how to can goods, how to preserve things, how to stretch meals during rough times. During the war, the club turned their focus from preservation of food, stretching it out because they did not have enough money to do that, but to conserve and preserve for the war. So not only did they have to provide for their families, but they also had to make enough to provide for the war as well, the war effort. This document focuses on a patriotic quilt that was made for the war. It was made during 1944, towards the end of the war, and it talks about how the women did many bond drives. They really pushed for the war effort, and they made this quilt that hung up in a local museum to show that all the women had a hand in helping in the war effort. This document is about one of their meetings. It's a summary of their meeting, and it is focusing on the farm woman's part in an all-out war effort and about recruiting women for the club. During this time, during the war effort in 1942, their members, the number of members they had actually increased than before the war, and they really pride themselves on this. The more women they felt, the more they could help the war, and the more these women would learn. They were also about the family during the war and how to help the family while also helping the war effort. These women did not get a break just because they were helping the war effort. They were expected to help their families as well as help the war. One of the topics of discussion before the war and during the war, as well as after the war, was the farm family food supply. They talked about what was healthy and what they needed to eat, which it changed over time. But this one talks about the 7 basic food groups and what children need to eat, as well as mother and father. The second part of the document, which I believe is the most interesting, is how children react to the war and the child development and family relationships. It talks about when the men come home, how the children might feel uncomfortable around the father, and in order to warm the children up to this idea of war, they needed to be given toys that involved the war, that they could learn about the war while also playing. That way when their fathers or brothers came home, they wouldn't feel estranged. They would feel like they knew where their dad was at, they knew what their brother was doing and what their brother or father were fighting for. This document talks about a war conference that was held in Arkansas, and all the women from the club that participated. Talks about the different topics that they discussed. One topic is we are in a war, and the rural women are expected to carry on as they always have, but in a greater degree in producing, saving, and sacrificing. That was the constant theme of the club. They still had to look presentable, they still had to be women, but they had to produce more, and they had to help out the war effort as well as be a mom at home. This document is an invite to one of the meetings that they held at Powhatan every Wednesday. This is what an invite would look like for every woman that was a member of the club. It goes line by line and tells who will be doing what songs will be played in what order, and what topics they're going to talk about. And this one topic is mothers of boys and girls in the armed service, and they wanted to honor these women. They sang many songs about America, America the Beautiful, Onward Christian Soldiers. They had a soldier speak about his experience in the armed services. They were very, very concerned with teaching women how to react to men when they came home from the war. They wanted men, when they came home from the war, to feel like this was home again. And these women wanted to know, and they wanted to learn what they needed to do in order to make their husbands and sons or brothers feel comfortable. So most of their meeting topics from the start of the war to the end of the war was, what can we do to help the war effort, and what can we do to make our husbands feel at home once they get home from the war. This document, I feel like, is extremely important because it is a list of the women who were inducted into the Hall of Fame at the end of World War II. There is a longer list. I just have this one, but I think it's important to see the names of these women because they did so much to help the war, and they did a tremendous amount of work outside of the home to help other women in the club. To produce for the war, encourage them during these hard times, and to help them as best they could. These are all the pictures of women that were in the club. This woman is in her vegetable garden. She was prized for her vegetables. This is a picture of women helping another woman in the club clean up her yard. This picture is extremely important because this woman's husband was a carpenter, but she wanted to add curb appeal to her home, so she put a siding on her house herself. So she was awarded by the club because she did this herself. This is a woman with her canned goods. This woman was prized for her poultry. They had a summer camp every year. Not a lot got to go once the war started. They did try to keep it going, but it was a little bit harder. But these women are loading on a bus to go to camp. These are women from the club as well as these women. And this is a woman with all of her canned goods as well. This club is a parent club to the 4-H, and this is a group of 4-H girls. This woman is teaching she's teaching at a woman's home. I believe her name is Miss Harris, and she was extremely important in the club. She's mentioned many times, and she went around teaching women how to add bushes and flowers to liven up their homes. Again, this is a picture of the women of the club. This is also, and this is one of the 4-H leaders. All the documents are courtesy of the Powhatan Historic Park, and this is my exhibit.